Good evening from New York. I'm Velshi in for Chris Hayes. There's really no one to root for in the escalating family feud between the President of the United States and his former aide, Omarosa Manigault-Newman, whose new tell-all book is out today. And it's a he said, she said between known liars and self-promoters. But today, Omarosa made an explosive new allegation about the president. One that gets to the heart of the Mueller investigation and whether the Trump campaign colluded with Russia to disrupt the 2016 election. Omarosa claims that then-candidate Trump had advanced knowledge of the hacked Clinton-related emails that were released by WikiLeaks.
You were instructed, according to your book, to bring up the emails at every point you could at the end of the 2016
that's
campaign.
Correct.
Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yes, that was our talker.
Did Donald Trump know about those emails before they came out?
Absolutely.
He knew about them?
Yes.
He knew what was coming out before WikiLeaks released them? You're saying Donald Trump had a back channel?
I didn't say that, you did, but I will say that I am going to expose the corruption that went on in the campaign and in the White House. I'm going to continue to blow the whistle on all of this.
Omarosa told MSNBC that she's been interviewed by the special counsel, but she declined to say whether she's appeared before the grand jury. Like her former boss and many of the people around him, she is not a reliable narrator. There's good reason to be skeptical of this latest claim, but Omarosa has been able to corroborate previous claims with secret audio recordings, both of the Chief of Staff, John Kelly, and of the president himself. Last night, another former Trump staffer, Katrina Pearson, denied ever having discussed a rumored tape from The Apprentice of the president saying the N-word, something Omarosa writes about in her book.
Katrina cursed and said, "He said it." Did that happen?
No, Ed, that did not happen. It sounds like she's writing a script for a movie. You know, I've already been out there talking about this. That is absolutely not true.
Absolutely not true. But yet again, Omarosa brought receipts, airing audio of a conversation with Pearson and other campaign aides about Trump this morning on CBS News.
I said, well, sir, can you think of any time that this might have happened? And he said no.
Well, that's not true.
He goes, how do you think I should handle it? And I told him exactly what you just said, Omarosa, which is, well, it depends on what scenario you're talking about. And he said, well, why don't you just go ahead and put it to bed? I don't know what the scandal is. No, he said it. He's embarrassed.
He said it. He's embarrassed. That's according to Katrina Pearson. In a statement today, she explained that that conversation was, quote, was one of the many times that I would placate Omarosa to move the discussion along because I was weary of her obsession over this alleged tape. And here's the kicker. Asked directly today if there could be a recording of the president uttering a racial slur, the White House would not rule it out.
Can you stand at the podium and guarantee the American people they'll never hear Donald Trump utter the N-word on a recording in any context?
I can't guarantee anything, but I can tell you that the president addressed this question directly. I can tell you that I've never heard it.
Just to be clear, you can't guarantee it.
Look, I haven't been in every single room. I can tell you the president has addressed this directly. He's addressed it directly to the American people, and I can tell you what the focus and the heart of the president is, and that's on helping all Americans.
All right, now the president is going to war against Omarosa, insulting her on Twitter. Quote, when you give a crazed, crying lowlife a break and give her a job at the White House, I guess it just didn't work out. Good work by General Kelly for quickly firing that dog. The Trump campaign has reportedly retained the same lawyer who represented Hulk Hogan in his successful lawsuit against Gawker Media. And today, they filed arbitration proceedings against Omarosa for violating a 2016 non-disclosure agreement. You'll hear it referred to as an NDA. For more on the battle between the Trump White House and one of its own, I'm joined by Betsy Woodruff, politics reporter for The Daily Beast, and NBC News White House correspondent Geoff Bennett. Betsy, let's start with you. It is very clear that Omarosa, whatever evidence she has gotten under the president's skin.
Without a doubt. That's certainly not something that's up for debate. And she's also caused the week to essentially be spoiled for White House staffers. Part of the reason so many folks in the White House quite close to the president are seeing this week sort of crumble underneath them is because Omarosa was in a lot of rooms. She attended a lot of meetings. And people in the White House tell us that even though she didn't have a particularly large policy portfolio, and even though she doesn't have much of a record of accomplishment to roll out as to her time in the White House, in fact, many of her colleagues criticized her while she was there for not being a particularly productive member of the staff. She did manage to place herself in the room for a host of meetings and as well as having conversations throughout the day with plenty of her colleagues, and people just don't know how much of that she taped. It's the big question mark. It's the open question, and that's why there's so much agita in the White House over the Omarosa story.
Well, she may actually have been one of the most productive people around because every meeting she went to, she apparently taped. Jeff, Politico has a headline says people are terrified, or a quote says people are terrified. Trump staffers live in fear of Omarosa's next tape. I mean, this is 3 times in a row where she has made an allegation. The White House or someone around the Trump orbit has denied it, and she's come with a recording.
That's right, Allie. And look, President Trump is clearly consumed by this. He's been tweeting about Omarosa at least 10 times in just the last 24 hours. But White House staffers, at least some of them, describe the kind of psychological warfare that former Hillary Clinton campaign staffers described in July 2016 when day after day WikiLeaks was trickling out emails belonging to the hacked emails belonging to Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta. So there is an interesting parallel here. I will tell you, though, that some senior White House staffers say that they feel relatively safer thinking that Omarosa wasn't able to record those conversations because she wasn't included in those sort of smaller, high-level meetings, Allie.
Betsy, Matty Iglesias from Vox tweeted out, perhaps I'm naive, but my guess is a lot of Americans have a pretty naive and narrow view of what racism amounts to, and video of Trump using taboo slurs would, in fact, change some minds about him. I don't know if that's true. Is the issue now whether or not the president actually ever used the N-word, which Sarah Huckabee Sanders was not able to categorically deny today? But is that really the issue? The president sort of stuck in the mid-30% approval rating despite everything we already know about him.
It's hard to talk about what type of response this hypothetical situation would generate. What we do know is that the president has a long history of comments and actions as it relates to racial issues in the United States that many, many people find to be deeply troubling. And this goes all the way back to the 70s when he was sued for allegedly discriminating against African Americans when it came to renting out apartments in the buildings that he controlled. Moving forward, you have Trump going after the Central Park five young men who were accused of being involved in a brutal assault in Central Park, despite the fact that they were exonerated by DNA evidence. For years after that fact, Trump stayed pushing the line that these men were actually guilty, despite DNA exoneration. Fast forward to his time in the White House, of course, we have him using an obscenity to refer to sub-Saharan and African countries, suggesting immigrants from African countries cause problems for the United States, but immigrants from Scandinavian countries should be welcomed. You don't have to, think too hard to figure out what he's getting at when he makes comments and statements like that. So when it comes to this question of what kind of impact would a tape with the N-word on it have on the president's reputation, on Americans' perception of the president, look, I hate to say it, but I think a lot of this is already baked in.
Yeah, I think you might be right. ABC News, Jeff, is reporting that there were several former aides to President Donald Trump who received payments of roughly $15,000 per month from campaign or party accounts. So this concept of paying people money to not talk, and it's not clear whether they're paid to do any work or not, seems to be out there.
It does. And look, this came up today in the White House press briefing. We know that Donald Trump has a long history of using non-disclosure agreements, both in his business life and now in his political life, really paying people, in some instances, to keep silent and to keep his secrets private. But to the issue of the use of NDAs in the White House, we heard Sarah Sanders today suggest that it's standard practice and has been done throughout previous administrations. as soon as she said that, as the White House briefing was wrapping up, there were reporters in the room who screamed that, Sarah, that's not true.
Right.
And as we called former officials in previous administrations, we learned that that is, in fact, the case. We talked to Chris Liu, the former cabinet secretary for President Obama. We heard from Ari Fleischer, who worked in the George W. Bush administration. We heard from Joe Lockhart, who worked in the Clinton administration. All three of those men said that NDAs have never been used in the White House, that there are protections, of course, for highly classified, sensitive information.
Sure.
But that all falls under a security clearance. It has no, NDAs have no use in the White House. NDAs are used for preserving personal secrets, not state secrets, Allie.
All right. Thanks to both of you, Betsy Woodruff and Geoff Bennett. Thanks to both of you. For more on these NDAs, these non-disclosure agreements, and what else Omarosa might reveal, I'm joined by MSNBC legal analyst Mimi Rocah, a former federal prosecutor, and MSNBC political analyst Jason Johnson, politics editor for The Root. Welcome to both of you. Mimi, let's just talk about these NDAs. Is there anything that governs who's allowed to ask for one or get one back, or is it just as the two parties to an agreement decide?
Well, I think in this case, we're not talking about just anybody, right? We're talking about the government putting an NDA in place with government employees. And that's what's so controversial and why Sarah Sanders' claim that every administration has done this just can't be right.
Right.
You know, there's First Amendment concerns when you're talking. I mean, this isn't really Donald Trump a party to these NDAs. This is the White House, the government. And whenever you have government action trying to limit the speech of public employees, but even private employees, there's a whole First Amendment analysis here. And that's why I think a lot of people are saying these are likely unenforceable. And so the move to sue to enforce this NDA, I can't believe that they really think they're going to win that claim, so there must be some other purpose in filing that suit.
So Jason, get inside Omarosa's head for a second. I know that's asking a lot, but in her world, she knows she's been dripping little bits of evidence out there. She has successfully now 3 times in a row said something in her book that has been countered elsewhere, and then she has indicated that she has recordings. She told me she's got plenty more recordings, and she knows the White House is coming for her. She knows the Trump campaign's coming for her, and they do appear to be fearful of what she knows. So they're trying to muzzle her. They might be able to get some sort of a temporary restraining order to do that. But where do you see this going?
Well, this goes as far as it works for Omarosa in selling the book. That's the first thing. And Ali, I've been saying this all along. Regardless of how people feel about Omarosa, she is a very, very smart woman. She has been doing this for years. Can you name anyone else in the history of reality television who's had a 15-year career, except maybe Congressman Duffy and The Miz, who's a wrestler? I mean, she knows how to keep herself in the public sphere. But on top of that, she has been mentored by Donald Trump for years. She knew legally what she was going to be capable of doing. You notice that they're suing for arbitration, which means they can keep it quiet in a room with judges and mediators. They don't want to go to trial with her. Discovery would blow up in their faces. That would give them an opportunity to reveal more information. So clearly the White House is concerned, and given the number of people and how long she was there and how close she was to the President of the United States, Omarosa knows that she is completely inoculated legally from anything they want to do.
So Mimi, NDAs are often signed by parties if I've got some sort of secret. I want to maybe have you as an investor in my business, and I don't want you going around and telling other people what I'm up to. And we know that there's classified information that you can't disclose. But what Omarosa said to Katie Tur is kind of remarkable, that Katie asked her if he knew about the Hillary Clinton emails, and she said, yeah, he did.
Right. It is remarkable. It's explosive if true. And that's the big question. As you and other people have said, you know, there's good reason to be skeptical of her, of Omarosa. On the other hand, look, if she has a recording of some form that corroborates that, that would be hugely important. Even if she doesn't have a recording, if we don't know exactly in what form the questioning has already taken place of her by Mueller, but they may want to talk to her again now.
Right. She's already said she's talked to that investigation once. If she says anything on TV that they don't already know, they
will want to talk to her again. But they're never going to take just her word for it. I mean, they wouldn't do that with any witness, let alone this witness who everyone has reason to be skeptical of. But they're going to ask her, you know, and I didn't see the full interview, but I don't believe she was asked, well, how do you know he knew? I mean, that's the first important question. Now, I will say this, though.
that claim that Trump knew ahead of time about the hacked emails, it doesn't sound crazy.
No, because he went out and talked about it.
Right. What else we know about the investigation, about the facts that have come out about what happened. So in that sense, you kind of think, this could be true.
Right, and if she can get the investigators closer to the how, Jason, that becomes interesting. But you just mentioned she's inoculated. She's really inoculated if she has any real dirt on him. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure that the dirt about the fact that the president may have used the N-word is needle-moving. But if she gives Mueller something he can use, that is.
Well, yeah, and Ollie, that's the difference. There's things that are going to be useful to selling the book, and there's things that she's probably planned out. I mean, look, she was 20 steps. She was Batman on this. She was 20 steps ahead of the Trump administration. She knew when her book was coming out. They didn't necessarily know. And I think this is important for us all to understand. There's a political element to all of this, and there's a legal and sort of an American democracy element to it. For all the people out there that want to poo-poo this and, oh, this is just drama. No. What we're hearing about at its core is a close advisor of the President of the United States who regularly recorded people and is now revealing it for profit. That speaks to the lack of vetting. That speaks to the lack of organization and administration. It speaks to the overall lack of trust. And the fact that we have this kind of thing happening already, a year and a half into this administration, it speaks volumes about what we might see down the road. And I'll be honest, Mueller probably knows almost everything that Omarosa has on his tapes, but he knows that having a witness like that in the investigation, if they got in trouble for the Steele dossier, imagine if he brought Omarosa up as a witness.
All right, thanks to both of you for joining me tonight, Mimi Rocah and Jason Johnson. Great to have you here.